I'm delighted to see you here today before the committee. I look forward to your confirmation. You will be confirmed. I, too, have taken note of the number of times you have been asked about weaponization of the Department of Justice as if it was a theoretical possibility that might happen in the future. One of my colleagues on the other side said, weaponization may well occur under your tenure. We all know that weaponization has occurred like we've never seen before in American history under this administration. And I want to get even more specific. In the last 4 years, this administration has carried out an unprecedented attack and campaign against people of faith. If you look at the numbers, we've never seen anything like it before in American history. It has been one of the most disgraceful chapters in the history of the Justice Department and in the history of the FBI. And I hope that you will reverse this and do right by every American citizen, including especially people of faith. Let me give you some specifics. After the Dobbs case was decided by the Supreme Court, over 100 pregnancy care centers and over 300 churches in this country were attacked, vandalized, firebombed. Do you happen to know off the top of your head how many prosecutions Merrick Garland's Justice Department brought in those cases? I do not, Senator. It's a stunning number. It's 2. Hundreds of churches, hundreds of pregnancy care centers. And I might just add, these pregnancy care centers, the attacks on them, which were violent, which were gruesome, were egged on and encouraged by rhetoric from members of Congress, including members of this body, who have said that pregnancy care centers aren't real medicine, that they're not real doctors. They have legitimized these attacks. And the same thing was true of churches. And this Justice Department couldn't lift a finger to defend these Americans. But at the same time, they used legislation, a law known as the FACE Act, to prosecute at least 53 different pro-life demonstrators, including people like Mark Houck from Pennsylvania, to whom this Justice Department sent a SWAT team to his door in the early morning hours. He has, I think, 7 children. In the early morning hours, an FBI SWAT team shows up at his door to take him into custody and prosecute him. By the way, he was acquitted. This kind of outrageous, disparate treatment has to end. So here's my question to you. Will you protect churches and pregnancy care centers when they are targeted for violence, when they are targeted for intimidation, when their members or parishioners are threatened with violence or other acts of illegal behavior?
Yes, Senator.
Will you stop the disparate treatment of Americans on the basis of religious faith?
Yes, Senator.
Will you stop the deliberate persecution of pro-life Americans for nothing more than their pro-life beliefs?
Yes, Senator.
Will you ensure that nothing like the Mark Houck case happens again, that Americans do not have SWAT teams arriving on their front doors with armed weapons to terrorize their children and their spouses, only in the end, of course, to have the case lost because there was nothing to it? Will you put an end to that kind of deliberate intimidation of the good American citizens on the basis of their religious beliefs?
Yes, Senator.
I'm glad to hear you say that because we need it. We need it. Ms. Bondi, we need a new chapter at the Justice Department, and we need it quickly. And I'm glad you're committed to it. Now, I also have heard you've been asked about your comment that you thought that in some cases we need to investigate the investigators, the ones who were bad. You know, I have to say I'm glad to hear you stand by that. We need to do that. You need to do that. And I'll give you another example. I'm sure you've read about this memo, which I now hold in my hands. This memo that was developed by the FBI field office in Richmond, Virginia, 23rd January 2023, targeting Catholic parishes for spying, for recruitment of infiltrators. I mean, the memo goes on and on and on about the FBI's plans to put assets into Catholic parishes, into choirs. This is an unbelievable assault on Americans' First Amendment rights, and we only know of it because of a brave whistleblower who came forward and released it to us. And I will tell you, I have never been misled and lied to like I was by the current Attorney General and the now former FBI Director when they sat right where you're sitting now and told this committee, oh, we don't know anything about it. Oh, only one field office was involved. It was the single work of a single field office and a very few individuals. As it turns out, that's not true. Multiple field offices were involved. Multiple individuals were involved. Under your leadership, will you put a stop to the use of FBI or Department of Justice resources to try and recruit informants and spies into Christian churches or any church or house of worship in this country on the basis of nothing more than faith?
Of course, Senator.
Let me just say this. To our knowledge, no one who was involved in the writing and performance, execution of this memo has been disciplined or fired. Will you conduct an investigation like you talked about, Ms. Bondi, that will get to the bottom of abuses like this? And to be clear, this is an outrageous abuse. It is an outrageous abuse. One of the worst abuses of Department of Justice and FBI authority in our history. Will you conduct an investigation to find out who signed off on this, who approved it, who advocated for it within the Department of Justice? Will you open the books on these abuses so that the American people can have confidence in their DOJ?
Senator, and I think what you're talking about is the ultimate weaponization, what we've been discussing all day. If I am confirmed as Attorney General, one of the first things I will do, there'll be many, but I will personally read that memo, and if Mr. Patel is confirmed, discuss it with him right away.
Fantastic. And will you work with this committee and our relevant subcommittees? I'm going to chair a subcommittee called the Crime and Terrorism Committee. We're going to do our own investigation into what happened here at the FBI and the DOJ. Will you work with us as you discover the nature of these abuses, and as you put a stop to them, will you work with us to make sure the American people get all the facts and this never happens again?
And Senator, yes, I look forward to working with you and the Democrats. I would think this is something that we can all agree on both sides, that this should not be happening in the United States of America.
You know, in watching this video and just listening to a lot of the stuff that Senator Hawley was talking about, I wasn't aware of some of these cases, at least as far as coming after Christians. And, you know, you hear bits and pieces of some of it, but of course, with our mainstream media, they don't put a lot of this stuff in the news. And it's kind of heartbreaking from one standpoint when you look at how Christians have been targeted. And, you know, this has been going on for centuries. But for those of you that are watching that may be discouraged or disheartened by listening to what our own Department of Justice has done over this past administration, be encouraged. I think what a lot of Christians forget about is that this is all part of the story. You know, the story's already been written. Satan has been defeated. We know how the book ends. You know, Christ returns, takes his bride or those that have truly following him, you know, and we live in eternity with him. But what I think gets lost in the sauce is a lot of people that live in this world. This world is all we've ever known. And it's very easy to get caught up in, you know, feeling like, man, you know, I want to see my kids grow up. I don't want to die, because we can't fathom eternity. I used to love watching a lot of videos about near-death experiences. And what's funny, and I've watched a lot of them, the majority of the people that have shared their testimony about these near-death experiences always say that when Christ told them that they had to go back, none of them wanted to come back here. So they weren't thinking about family. They weren't thinking about, oh, I want to see my kids grow up. None of them wanted to leave heaven. So because we live in this realm, it's hard to wrap our heads around that. But again, I don't want to get too far off and down a rabbit hole. The point I'm trying to make is when you look at all the stuff that's going on against Christians, Jesus foretold this, that we would be persecuted. What a lot of people have to remember is that even Jesus called Satan the prince of this earth. You know, Satan will do what he's going to do for a time, and then it's going to be over. And I just want to encourage you today, if you're a little bit discouraged by thinking and hearing these kind of stories, thinking, I don't want to be attacked or persecuted. Nobody does. But that's part of walking out this Christian faith. If they persecuted and targeted Jesus, who are you to not be persecuted and targeted? But even in the midst of that, my encouragement comes in this form when you hear these stories and you get disheartened by what's happened in this country. This world is coming to an end, whether you like it or not. One day, Jesus Christ is going to return, and he's going to wrap up all this crazy on this earth. And unless you have a relationship with him to where your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life, that when you stand before him one day, because all of us are going to close our eyes in death one day. Nobody gets out of here alive. So it's important to get it right on this side. Like I've said before, this is your dress rehearsal, folks. Don't be discouraged by the garbage that you see, you know, whether it's persecution or the way Christians are treated. Just remember, if they did it to him, they'll do it to you. But also, what did Christ say in his word? That if you are persecuted for his name's sake, that's a blessing. There's a reward for you one day in heaven. So that's where our focus should be, and just remembering that this is all going to wrap up one day. And we, every day, everything that happens, we are moving closer and closer to those days. A lot of people are excited, and I'm kind of excited to see the new administration and some of the things that they're talking about wanting to do. But at the same time, all this stuff ebbs and flows. You know, it's going to get worse. I know you don't want to hear that. But again, you also have to remember, we are ambassadors for Jesus Christ. We are supposed to represent the kingdom of heaven here on earth. So we can, even though this stuff is going to happen, we can combat and push back against this stuff. But a lot of believers don't really understand or know how to do that. We need to be in prayer. We need to be steadfast in walking in righteousness, because when you're not walking in righteousness, it's kind of hard for God to operate in your life the way he wants you if you're walking in blatant sin. So, and this is not to beat you up, it's just to encourage you. Just remember that this world is coming to an end one day, but be encouraged, because you know that if you are right with the Lord and right standing with the Lord, you will live again, even when you close your eyes on this side. So be encouraged today. I'm thankful for people like the Pam Bondis and the Senator Hawleys and those that seem to stand for truth and the right way of doing things. But we know that there's another side. There's always another side pushing against us. So I'm thankful for these reprieves that God gives us, even with the new administration, with all the crazy we've all seen the last 4 years. So anyway, I just wanted to jump on here. I love you guys, and I will check you on the next one. Talk to you later.